This is our second meeting this week. And somewhere in between all these meetings, some of us actually try to have a life. So it's not that we haven't tried to schedule a meeting. And we've tentatively scheduled Monday as an opportunity to meet with both Finance Committee and the school committee. We're not certain, I can't tell you.
I applaud you for it, so.
No, but I mean, that's been ongoing for quite a while. And, but it's also not like the boards don't talk, and the members don't talk. So, back to my comment earlier on the clerical staff, when we went through the last budget process, and Tom, just tell me I have to stop if I go too far, but when we looked at letting certain positions go in the last budget process, what we found was that based on the contract, if you will, that we could have a domino effect in terms of who sits in what chair. So we could have people who weren't qualified to do a position in that chair. So that's what I meant by dominoes.
Mr.
I
understand. Did you understand my meaning?
I can perfectly understand that if there's no layoffs on the town side, why the perception is that we're not feeling the pain, but
I'm not here to lay blame.
Yeah,
I mean,
I understand that.
I commend you for what you did.
But
I guess I'm here to say, in some way, because you guys talked between two boards, that there should be a way we can shore up the school system better than it's being shored up right now.
Well,
And I'm concerned, and I'm more concerned, I'm not so much concerned for next year, I'm concerned for the trend. In 5 years, could be in a hole you can't get out of.
last year, we talked often and mostly about an override or the override. This year, override discussions were kept to a minimum, and at the finance planning team, actually, the only one who mentioned the O word was yours truly, last Friday. So, there you go. We will continue to work together to do the best that we can, but that's all we can do.
One last, which is a scenario that I believe Mel was trying to ask, and I'll just put it in scenario form. If the school committee came in on Monday with a budget that was, pick a number, 21 million, how does that get financed? How does that get funded? In other words, if it's significantly higher, who decides where does the money come from, and how does it get? I know it gets negotiated, but who decides if there is an overage, how that gets funded?
They would have to request an override.
So it has to exceed a certain limit to become an override? I mean, it looks like it came out of a reserve.
You throw out a number of 21 million.
Well, let's make
Just
it
making
more
a
reasonable,
number.
8.1. Yeah, something higher
If they
than.
want only 8.1, oh boy. I got class.
288K over what they've asked for.
Mr. Chairman?
Friday morning, I'll get to Mr. Kelly.
Sure.
Friday morning, there was concern about how would we get 110 back, that magically, because of the way the governor prepared the budget and stuck chapter 70 in there for vote in Essex Aggie and changed the busing formula, that we were 110 short, and fortunately, we were able to get it from the overlay account. So if your question is there another 288,000 in the overlay? I don't think so. But Mr. Dow could respond to that.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Callaghan.
Speaking to your point, sir, you know, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, and as a parent with 3 children in the school system, we can make suggestions just like you can, or do, in terms of how the school budget should be spent. But we don't have a vote on that. The school committee decides how they're going to allocate whatever the appropriation is. Last year, I think after the override was defeated, they reappropriated some money, and not as many positions were lost as was previously advertised was to happen. That is how you would go about changing, you know, how many positions were lost and how many weren't. They also have fixed costs that, you know, they can't go into that, but that can affect positions. I advocated from the first budget meeting I attended on a Saturday morning, an override for the amount that are being cut in salaries. From my perspective as a parent and as a teacher, is that the 3 things you always make sure you have are direct student services: teachers, textbooks, and technology. And to me, that's where you have to, you know, administration, to me, those are layers that you add on, but I would keep that, but we don't decide that. We have to, the numbers are given out, and I think what you're asking is who decides how much is given where. Ultimately, town meeting does. They're the ultimate arbiters in this whole process. The budget that comes out of our board and the number that you see, the school committee gets a number that's decided on when we break up the money. They decide how it's spent.
Oh, it wasn't done that way, Kevin. It wasn't done that way. They prepared a budget, and they gave the number, and then we put.
Okay, I'm sorry, then I have that in
That's
reverse.
the
But what I'm saying is that's where the number came from, to try to speak to the point that you raised. The number was presented, revenues, available revenues were then dispensed, at least on paper at this point. And then they decide, just like when we have our department heads, and they were deciding how they were going to spend what was allocated to them. That's what the school committee does also. So if the number that's presented as the bottom line budget, that's the only one that we have any say on. How it's divided up, that's the school committee's purview.
I want to go back to an earlier point, though. The positions that the school department had slated for cutting last year were put back as a result of the additional state aid in Chapter 70 that was received by the town.
Thank you, John.
And what happened was when the state finished the budget, as you all know, we predicated the budget on a 10% cut. It was closer in the end to 6, that might be exact. It was closer in the end, excuse me, to 6.9%. But one of the things that came back was Chapter 70, and one of the other things that was included in the final budget that came out in the summer was that there was enabling legislation that allowed the local authorities, be it the Board of Selectmen or the mayor, to release those funds without prior approval of town meeting. So that's how they got them in. So they didn't.
Well, okay, a better example then would be AP courses. It was said that they were going to be eliminated the first meeting after it. They were able to reappropriate the money, and that's what they did. They announced at the next meeting back that AP courses weren't eliminated. So that's the process of reappropriating, is all I'm trying to say. Is they're not, the school department is not locked into those line items that you'll see in the town warrant. The municipal side of the budget is.
Mrs. Tingman had your hand up for a while.
Additionally, I would like to also point out that there were and still are cuts that we are experiencing in staffing at the school, in the schools. I know this for a fact. My daughter is in a class that was reduced from 4 sections to 3 sections. She has less computer time, she has less physical education. So don't say that there's no cuts. Secondly, I understand that the distribution of state aid came in with a lower amount for local government, local aid, and a higher amount for Chapter 70, and yet our budget, and the Chapter 70, in addition to the grants being funneled into that one pot in the voc aid, that still leaves us with some overage, but the school, and that's predicated on the number of students coming in, the increase in students, the growth of the student population. And I'm just curious as to why the school doesn't actually realize that increase on their bottom line. I think it nets out to $300K.
Excuse me 1 minute. Mr. Villa, you have the gavel.
I can't answer that. Something we said, John?
You want to take a 5-minute break, John?
The allocation,
I didn't hear the question.
all the local aid goes into the general revenue. There is no 60-40
So
split.
the Chapter 70 aid that goes, that's allocated by the state for education, doesn't actually go for education?
It goes for education. If you want to look at how the whole package is allocated, you could say that X amount of dollars went toward education. The other stuff went to general government, and then whatever was appropriate for taxation purposes went. There was no 60-40 split. They came in with their budget.
I wasn't asking about the 60-40 split, although I am, my next point was actually to be that this level funded budget is also predicated on last year's 60-40 split.
Right.
So you're really slicing the apple, you know,
Same way.
the same way. Thank
George,
you.
did you have?
Yeah, the comment I would make is, the school budget is a great deal more than the Chapter 70 money. So that when the revenue to the town is cut, everything gets cut. You can't just take one piece of the revenue because it goes up.
But
That
if-
particular budget should go up also.
If the increase to the state aid is predicated on the services we need to provide to an increased number of people, you would think that the money would go to the services that the state is saying we need to provide to those people. That is just to me, it's common sense, but that's just me, I guess.
It implies that there's a missing $250,000 or so somewhere in there, assuming a level funded budget
It's, right.
plus the $45,000.
And I'm confused about that because it doesn't make sense.
That money had to go to the town side of government.
Because it was taken away from local aid, the Chapter 70 school money went to
Well,
the town government.
I guess. If total, I'm gonna make up the numbers. If total state aid is 6 million, and of that, 2 million is Chapter 70 in a given budget year. And then in the next year, total state aid is 5 million, but 3 million is Chapter 70. Does that then argue that the school budget grows by $1 million?
If it's predicated on a need for a service, absolutely. If there's increased enrollment and the state says you have 100 more kids, your foundation is $5,800 per kid, here's your, this is how much money we're allocating for this foundation, and that doesn't come in, then why would the state give us money? It's to me, it's saying, because you have more students, you need to hire another firefighter. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm not saying you did that, but I'm saying it's to
Well,
me,
that's what I'm
it's like,
saying.
did you drive to work or bring your lunch? It doesn't work.
All the other cuts, it didn't go to general government per se.
It came into the town, the budgets were level funded, And yet, so, for all intents and purposes, the school took a cut of $300,000 is what I'm looking at.
Well, you know, if you look at, depending